upon us on October the 1st, 2009 for the Whitley County Oral History Project, here with Betty Schumann Anderson at her home on the north side of Columbia City. Thank you very much, Betty, for having us here.
This is my first time to do this, so I don't know how.
Okay, that's fine. Where were you born and raised?
In the brick house right behind you.
Brick house in the picture right here.
Yeah.
Okay, now where is that?
It used to be, here different distances, but 4 miles west of Columbia City on Old 30.
On Old Lincoln Way.
Yeah,
right,
Lincoln Way.
Right now. And by the way, when you were born there, were you born in the house?
Yes.
And you probably, was there a doctor there?
Probably Uncle Doc.
Okay.
Dr. Schumann was my uncle, great uncle.
Okay, who came out from Columbia
Probably.
City?
I think he did for most of the, for our family.
Okay, and it was a farm.
Yeah, it had originally 123 acres, I think, something like that.
And the brick house, who built the brick house?
Price Goodrich would have been my great-grandfather, and your great-great-grandfather, if I got it right.
Right.
And it was built in the 1850s, and there's different dates, but they made the bricks on the place. So I assume that it took the 3 years, like 1850 to 1853, something like that.
They used the clay on a farm for the bricks.
Yes, and most of the wood came from there too.
Okay.
Everything, And they had a cabin back behind.
Where they lived in before they...
That's where they stayed while they were building.
Okay.
And I have a couple cousins, or did have, Izara and Mildred Walker, Izara Lehman and Mildred Walker. I was going to ask you about naming names. It's all right, I think.
Sure, sure.
Used to play in that cabin, but just the foundation was there when I remember.
Okay, is the house still there?
The house, yes, the brick house is still there, and you know what? I was by there yesterday, and since they fired the people that were working on it, they haven't done nothing.
Okay, but they are now restoring the brick house.
Yeah, they were, but I don't know what's going. But they got so much in it. The east end, they all rebuilt all of that. I don't see how they can stop now, but you have to have somebody to do it.
Okay, so where did you go to school?
Larwill.
How about grade school?
12 years.
Now, where was the grade school?
At Larwill.
Was it in the same building as the high school?
Yeah. 1929 is the year I started school, and that's the year they built a lot of that.
Okay. Is the school still there, the Larwill High School?
None of it.
Okay. How did you get to school?
On the bus. And
you had a bus way back when you were...
Yeah, they were different. But when I rode on the first year, or maybe 2 years, Alvy Beer drove it, and it was a hearse made into a school bus.
But it was not, it was a regular car type thing?
Oh, it was bigger, more like the vans we have now and that kind of thing.
Okay, okay.
But it was and there was one horse-drawn hack, they called them.
Okay. School hack?
Yeah, came to Larwill that first year, and it was from out in the Boonville area. And of course, I thought Boonville, that's out in the sticks, way out, and it actually, in between Larwill, Pearston, and Southwood, in that area. It's kind of out in the middle, and it's kind of,
The school probably didn't have running water at that time?
Yes, they had. I think they put all that in just before I was there, because they had restrooms in the school, but the old outside toilets were still there. So I don't know if they had indoor toilets the year before or not.
Okay. Oh, because when you were in high school, how was dating and courtship then? Did guys ask girls to dances and things like that?
We didn't have very many dances, but they usually had some parties, and there wasn't too much running around boys and girls till they were a little older, because you couldn't drive till you're 16. And
okay.
But they didn't drive to school like they do now. Very few people could afford that second car to go to school. And I think they had to have special permission to do it.
So, and when you were in high school, were there some teachers that were memorable?
Oh, yeah, I liked all my teachers all the way through, except one, and I'm not gonna tell you her name.
You want to tell us the name of a couple that you liked?
Doc Cross was a good teacher.
Okay, and what did he teach?
He taught me history, I think, in the 7th and 8th grade, something like that. And then in high school, I don't remember, history was his main.
Okay. And now, Larwill back then was, of course, very different. And I suppose a lot of the stores and...
Oh, yeah,
did they have a restaurant there in Larwill?
Oh, yeah, down there by the railroad track. It's gone now, the building. Curtis.
And the building's gone.
Yeah.
And kind of a family type
Well,
restaurant?
it was not exactly family because it had a bar, I think.
Okay.
I was never in the bar part, but this girl in my class was their granddaughter, and I was in part of it. They lived in the back of it.
Okay. And did they have groceries or things like that in Larwill at that time?
Oh, they had 3.
3 groceries?
2 or 3. Young's, what was Young's? I can't think of his first name, but there was Young's Grocery and Whittenberger was the 2 main ones.
And they had produce and
Not a lot like you do now.
not a lot because you had that on the farm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would get little money before, and we could go down to the stores at noon hour.
Oh, okay.
But we had
What
to
would
do
you do down there?
Well, folks would give me a little money and I'd buy something for my brother or something like that, you know. I remember I bought him a little dog for Christmas and
Okay.
stuff like that. And it was always kind of fun to go down there just to have something different to do.
Yeah.
But,
Maybe some candy there. And...
Oh, candy, yeah, they always had candy. But Whittenberger's was real. The people running it seemed to be kind of old, and it was kind of old-fashioned. And when we get Valentine's, the ones they had come from another generation, I think.
Very different then.
Yeah.
And then when you had to buy medicine, did they have, where would you buy that?
There were no drugstores in Larwill that I can
Okay.
remember. But Doc Tennant, you remember that name?
Yes.
Lived in Larwill, and I burnt my leg on the first school bus. It had been the 2nd or 3rd grade that we had. It was a real bus.
Mhm.
They had the exhaust heater under the seats. Can you imagine?
And you.
And you know, it was actually the exhaust of the bus, and it got hot, and I hit my leg against it, and it got an infection, didn't heal. And I don't know, she probably called him, I don't know, but Mom sent me down there over the noon hour to see him. He gave us some kind of powder, and it really worked. And then we used to get that powder, but you know, it's gone. I don't know why you could even buy it, but I don't know what it was.
Was there a place to buy clothes in Larwill?
Yeah, they had some. Whittenbergers and Young's both had, like overalls and shoes, some.
Okay. And that was just down there on the main street there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what-
You know where the bandstand is?
No.
You don't, anyway, they was right there on the main street, and the post office used to be up there too. It's down on another street now,
Okay.
but there was,
I suppose you made your own a lot of your clothes.
Mom did, his lover,
Okay.
you know.
But so what else was there in Larwill that's not there now?
Hotel,
There was a hotel in Larwill.
yeah.
What was the
Well,
name of it?
I didn't finish telling about the groceries.
Okay.
Matthias, who else had that store? I can't think right now. But anyhow, there was another store on another corner, a grocery that kind of came in later. But I don't know whether they were all 3 at the same time or not.
Okay.
But anyhow, the hotel was just across from it. And Ralph Kistler's lived in it later. But there wasn't no hotel when they lived in it. But they always called it a hotel. But it was built like, you know, a hotel.
Okay.
And I think Smith's funeral home got the building a lot. They probably sold it. I don't know what they did with it. But I don't think the people that lived in it had money, and I think they got that lot in the building.
Like on Saturday night, did people go to Larwill?
They had free movie.
Oh.
I don't know what night that was, but one night a week, I think.
Was it inside a building or
No,
outside?
it was outside on the side of the building.
On the side of the building.
That's the first movies I seen, the most I seen way back then.
Will you remember any of the movies?
Oh, they were like cowboy movies, and I can remember little stuff, you know, about them, but not,
Okay.
no name that I can remember any.
So, it was,
My folks didn't go to those things. I went with the neighbors,
now, why didn't your folks go?
milking cows for one
Oh,
thing.
they were busy.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they never had a milker, and, you know, they always milked by hand, even after they came in the people, everybody else had one, Dad wouldn't, you know, he still had to milk by hand.
I suppose, your family did, take time to go to church sometimes?
No, I can remember Dad took us once, way back,
Okay.
and we had I think it was a 25 Chevy. And it was one of those touring cars that had the top, it came off in the summertime and snapped on and that kind of thing. And a storm came up on the way up there and the top blew off. He didn't take us anymore.
Okay. Now,
He would go to special things, but he wouldn't.
do you remember any particular unusual events or tragedies or anything like that in Larwill when you were growing up?
I wish I could think of those people's name. Mars was their last name. Got killed on Old 30 right in front of the church.
Car accident?
Yeah, the road comes from the north there, and they
Okay.
evidently pulled out front of them or something, and they got killed.
Okay.
They were grandparents to Jim Bonstead's kids. His wife was king in that
Okay.
family. It was Cora, and I can't think right now. I'll think of it later, but anyhow.
Okay.
But there were several things. The little boy got killed there to the church one time.
By a car? Or?
Yeah,
Okay.
he jumped off a wagon and ran there towards the church and caught him. And that was Carmen, and Leon Carmen and Ari and Mary and Arlene was their family. They lived right back on my folks in that house.
Okay. Now, at, say, Christmas or 4th of July, did Larwill have any community events?
Not that I know of. That church, the Methodist church there is real active.
Okay, a
And
lot of it was probably connected with the
yeah,
churches.
and we lived far enough out that, you know, that was too far to go to that kind of stuff. We went up to Troy to some of their Christmas and that kind of thing.
So at home, what did you do for Christmas when you were a girl?
We went out in the garden and trimmed a branch off of an old pine tree that didn't even look like a Christmas tree. And
Yeah.
that was our Christmas tree.
Okay.
And that old house had drawers in the side of the wall inside, sometimes under the windows.
Yeah.
And we'd hang our stockings on those.
Okay. What did your parents put anything in the stockings then?
We'd get oranges once a year, and maybe apple or something, and maybe some well then, Uncle Doc sent maybe a 5-pound box of candy every Christmas.
Uncle Doc.
Yeah, Doc Schumann.
Oh.
He was my dad's uncle.
Okay.
I looked for his picture over at the hospital all the time, because every time they remodel, they take them down. And the last time I thought, they ever gonna put Uncle Doc's picture up? It's there.
Did the family exchange presents, or did
No, my mom and dad were both the youngest of their families, so there was no, you know, all the rest of them had their own families, and so
Yeah.
there was no, once in
Okay.
a while we might go to Orlando's, or, that's the only place I can remember going at Christmas or Thanksgiving, really. But, you know, like, they had big families and they had their own Christmas, and we were out here.
Did your parents get you, the kids, presents and then?
My dad would go to town the day before Christmas,
Okay.
and he would come back, and most of the time it was things that we liked, clothing and things like that, which amazes me, the kind of a man he was.
The things you like?
Yeah,
Oh, like what?
or dress or blouse or something like
And
that.
he would do it himself? Okay. So,
But usually the day before Christmas,
and when did you open the presents?
Christmas morning.
Were they wrapped?
Yeah, sometimes, but the
Okay.
paper was saved for as long as it hung together.
Okay. And probably had Christmas music.
No, no,
Okay, not much. Did you listen to the radio?
no. We had radio, and so it didn't work all the time because you couldn't buy batteries, couldn't get the batteries charged always.
Did the family sit around and listen to the radio sometimes together? Or?
Yeah, in the evenings sometimes, but mostly after supper we'd play games like domino and cards and stuff like that.
Oh, and did any neighbor kids ever come over?
Not a whole lot. We used to go back and forth with Marv Scott's kids
Mm-hmm.
when they ran the station down there. The kids would come out on weekends.
Which was like just like 100 yards or so from where you live?
Well,
On the
maybe
corner
a quarter of a mile. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And we would go back and forth and we would do all kinds of things. We went for long walks. We'd go a mile north, a mile south, and go clear around the square, which was a mile each way.
Just the kids would.
And we'd get over by Sheckler's, where there was a boy got killed, murdered,
Yeah.
and they found his body out in the woods. Well, when we went by that place, we ran.
Okay. Now, did back then did parents and teachers spank kids more
They were a little rough on the kids, I think.
in school?
Yeah.
More strict and.
Yeah, but they didn't. One lady school teacher had a strap. I think it had a wooden handle and a leather strap. But I think she had it to scare the kids more than anything, because I never known her use it. But I got to stand out in the hall.
Oh boy, why?
I couldn't keep quiet.
Okay. Now they had the regular 8 grades, did they?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My dad only went to the 8th grade, and his stepmother wanted him to go. Some of them, they didn't have transportation to the high school, usually way back in their time. And Uncle Floyd and Uncle Chance stayed with Alice King in Larwill and went to high school.
Okay.
And well, girls didn't get to do those things either.
Did you read and
Oh,
take
yeah.
your books home and read?
Oh yeah, we had a library at the school, and it was a good one.
Well, you had a library in
Oh
the
yeah,
school?
and I remember that when I was a little bitty kid, you know, 1st and 2nd grade, we'd go up there and they had.
You would check them out, take them home? Would
Oh
you?
yeah, and Dad read all of the grade books, I think. He got as much out of it as we did. I don't
Okay.
think Mom ever read that much, but she read some.
But your dad liked to read too?
Oh, up until a week before he died, he probably read the newspaper.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about the library in Columbia City? Did you ever go there?
No, I never went there until
Okay.
later, much later.
Okay, but you did like to read and later on and collect books?
Yeah.
didn't- Yeah.
Yeah, I used to have, I think I sold 800.
Okay. So.
Almost wish I had brought all these here, because what we gonna do with them, you know? Not gonna live forever, and there, I got all these, but I look at them some, but you know, forget what's there.
Did you, on the farm, did you work in the fields ever?
Oh yeah, just, we never, well, we did drive the horses a little at hay making time. We had to help make hay, and that was a lot.
What would you do to help make hay?
Oh, maybe we ride on a wagon and help put the load, distribute
Okay.
and that kind of stuff. And
Alright.
I don't know what I was gonna say, but anyway, that's, we did, like, my dad raised potatoes. And
Okay.
we weeded potatoes.
Oh, so you go out in the field and pull
Yeah,
the weeds?
and debugged them. Took a little stick and knocked the bugs off into the bucket.
Okay. Okay.
That house had a partial basement under, and had great big pens that he used to have, I don't know, 5 or 10 acres, I don't know how many acres, but he raised potatoes to
Okay.
sell.
And,
And your granddad probably started that,
okay.
because some of the crates had F.L. Goodrich on them.
Okay, Frank Leroy Goodrich. But you worked in, did you help fix the meals back then?
Yeah, but you know, if you're out in the field, you can't do that.
Okay.
And Wilma stayed in the house more, my older sister. I would rather be, and she liked to be out, but she never got in on as much of that.
Okay, but you used the garden stuff a lot for meals, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, we never bought anything, except the
Okay.
meat once in a while.
Well, what would you do for meat, usually?
We had pork,
And you
butchered our own,
butcher the pork,
yeah,
okay, and make sausage.
all that stuff.
Well, what things did you have in the garden?
About the usual, but when we raised peanuts one year, and we kind of experimented like everybody
Okay.
else does, yeah. But we had beans, you know, green beans, and then we usually had a truck patch, we called
okay.
it.
Which is bigger than a garden,
It's
maybe?
usually bigger and later, maybe. Maybe there'd be a
Okay.
corner of a field where Dad would tell, well, you can have that for a truck patch.
Like-
Maybe be potatoes,
And
you know, for
corn.
early ones, and corn. And maybe pick cucumbers, melons sometimes, and that kind of thing.
So you would probably can quite a bit,
Oh, yeah.
and like beets and tomatoes and.
I remember the folks went to, I don't remember where they went that time, whether it was a ball game or what, I think they went to Chicago. But anyhow, we were getting, I mean, I might have been 16 or 17, we weren't little kids, but we picked a lot of berries and that kind of stuff during the summers. And I canned blackberries while they were gone.
Well, like wild blackberries.
Wild blackberries.
And what would you do? Would you make some kind of jam or something?
No, they were canned, used as fruit.
Okay.
Mom would make some jam sometimes, but I didn't even make much jam after I got married. And it's a good thing I didn't, because I would be diabetic because I eat sweets all the time, so
Okay.
that's my excuse.
What did you do for bread? Did you make bread?
Yes, except that we'd run out and things like that. And
Okay. What would you make the bread out of? How would you do that?
it usually used it, what do you call that, where you keep it over, you know, the yeast. Starter.
Oh,
You
okay.
put it in the refrigerator now, but of course we didn't have refrigerators, but
Okay.
you only need maybe 1 cake of yeast, and you could use that over and over because you kept adding and it would grow. And then you'd put a cupful or 2 or whatever you wanted in this batch of bread.
And-
But I like to do that. I like that kneading.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to make bread, but I don't do it no more, of course.
And I suppose you use corn like for mush or
Oh,
something.
yeah, I still do that occasionally.
Make mush out of the corn.
Yeah, and then fry it.
Fry it. Like, so would you have that for breakfast or?
We had potatoes and gravy or almost anything for breakfast. But we usually might have cornflakes and rolled oats. There weren't very many brands or kinds of cereal available.
Okay. Now, life was, a lot harder work back then than now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Was that a bad memory necessarily?
No. My brother and I, he was younger. My sister, I don't think ever got in on that for some reason, was older. Took turns helping with the chores when we were older. We'd go with Dad to the barn, and they had that silo, you know, and he would throw the insulates down. Well, we would distribute it in the troughs for the cattle and that kind of
Okay.
thing. I just like to do that. I did like that better than in the house, I guess.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah, I got closer to my dad that way too.
what, you got to kind of relate to your dad, and that was fun?
Well, more so than
Okay, what-
being scared of him. Can I tell? Can I tell something else that
Okay.
you might? They used horses. We had 3 almost all the time. We had 4 sometimes. They would borrow them from farm to farm if they didn't have enough, like when they were harvesting. Anyway, I don't think the fourth would belong to Dad, but we had 4 at one time. Well, anyway, you've been in that barn, you kind of know how it was built, but they had stalls, we call them, for the horses. And they would bring them in at noon or in the evening to the barn, and there was a water tank kind of in the middle of the barn, and they would take the harness off and let them run to the water by themselves, and they would do it and they'd come back. So there's this great big door where you go in and out. Dad would leave open sometimes, because it was hot and so on. But anyhow, when they came back, they was real close to that door. And one time, I don't know how old I was. I don't think I was too old. But Dad says, you stand in the door and stop them. And I seen that old horse coming at me, and I didn't stop it, and it ended up here over Larwill.
Oh.
And he said it would have turned, you know, it would have ran over you. I didn't know that. I mean, I wasn't taking any chance of that. Got out of the way.
A lot bigger than you.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I suppose people did get hurt on the farm, didn't they?
Oh, yeah.
Did anything like that happen in your family?
Not much. I mean, maybe little things, but I can't think of anything very big. But another thing that happened with the horses, the harness hung behind them on a wall. And it was the harness, I think it was 2 sets of fairly new harness, was stolen.
Oh, stolen right out of the barn?
Yeah. So Dad locked the house after the horse was stolen because he built one of those stalls, built it up clear up to the top, you know, and put a lock on it after they'd done that. But the hired man, Walter Western, he would go around to the farms and see who had it, you know. But they never could do anything, but they think they knew who got it, but I don't.
So did you have a hired man on the farm?
Most of the time, yeah.
And would he live there?
Sometimes he'd go home on weekends or something like that.
Okay.
We had different ones, different times.
So what did you do on Thanksgiving?
Stayed at home and ate rabbit.
Rabbits?
We never had turkey till I was much older.
Okay.
Never.
And they would hunt the rabbits somewhere. They wouldn't raise the rabbits, right?
Oh, we did. We raised rabbits for a while, but most of the time it was wild.
Okay, was that good? Rabbits?
Yeah.
Okay, and would you have the pumpkin pie?
Yeah, we had all that stuff. I mean, you know, because we had our own pumpkin and that.
Okay. And did you ever, and other people, relatives come over?
Not much. Like I said, we were kind of different. We were a family unto themselves because the other families were so much older.
Okay. But you did have reunions back then?
Oh, yeah, and we went to 2 every year.
What 2 were they?
Goodrich and the Schumann.
And were they big? I mean,
The Schumann's would have up to 200 people.
200 people, okay. What would you do at the reunions? What did they do?
Yeah, you got the book. We usually recite a piece, the children that were there.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, they had a program. And the Schumann reunion, we had a girl, it was relation to Willis Miller, but I can't remember, it must have been his sister's child or something. She was from Wayton here, but she was athletic or, can't think of the right words for acrobat type thing. And she put on quite a show, you know, she'd roll around up there on the stage and everything.
Did they have music ever?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes. We weren't very musical though.
But relatives were around each other more
Oh yeah, see,
back then, right?
Yeah, you knew who your relations was. My kids don't know their cousins.
When people got older and couldn't take care of themselves back then, there weren't any nursing homes, were there?
No, most of the families had an older aunt or somebody like that living with them a lot.
So they might move. Oh, they would live with
Yeah.
the regular family.
Yeah, and I can remember Aunt Candace. You might remember
Are you
her.
talking about Candace Schumann?
Yeah,
Okay. And she lived with your family?
well, off and on.
Off and on.
She worked. I mean, if we had the measles and stuff like that, she would come in and do what Mom would, you know. And George Beard, did you remember him?
Well, I've heard the name, yes.
Well, anyway, one time George and Aunt Candace were there at the same time. And then neither one of them were married. And George had a crippled hand. Some way he had lost most of his fingers, had one finger and one thumb, something like that on one hand. And he said he couldn't milk. Well, when Aunt Candace was there, he could milk.
Okay.
And the folks got a big bang out of that. He would help her on with her char coat and all that stuff, you know, when she went to the barn to work.
So what did you do right after high school?
Went to work, housework, $1 a day.
Okay. Nearby people?
Everybody, I mean, Mom arranged it, I'm sure she did. It was little wine coops.
Okay.
And that's where I met my husband.
Well, how did you meet your husband then?
He worked for him.
Oh, okay.
They lived across the road from him. And I stayed there during the week and would go home on weekends.
And then...
He had to take me home because I didn't have no transportation. First he put me in the back seat.
Did you get married soon after that?
We went together about a year.
Okay.
Almost a year anyway.
And then where did you live then?
We lived across from Wells when we got married for a year.
Okay.
And then he went to service.
He went to the service?
Yeah.
What did he do in the service?
He was in the signal corps. And he went in
about what year was this?
1945. Let's see. The war was declared in 41. It would have been January. No, he went in December of 41.
Okay.
That's not right, is it? I'm a year behind from 42, I think. But anyway, he's in that picture up there, but
Okay.
the old cars are out there. One of them is ours.
And did he serve in any kind of, in Europe anywhere?
No, he served on the other direction. He was in Philippines. He went to, he was in Hawaii quite a while, and they didn't do much. They was just there waiting. But they went to the Philippines, and he never would talk about it much. But he delivered messages to the front, so he wasn't pretty much in danger all the time. But he didn't talk about it.
Okay. And
he was gone 3 years, and I had Janice the week after he left the first time.
and what did you do for income while he was?
Well, I worked. I don't know how many new babies I went and took Janice with me.
And where did you work?
Neighbors, Ed's sister, Homer Schumann's, just like that.
So you would help out wherever you could find something.
Yeah, when I went to my folks, and then I would go to his folks a while, and I stayed like that. If somebody wanted me, they'd come get me, and I'd go stay, and she'd go with me.
Were there some people that you knew that didn't come back from the war that were killed in that area?
Ansel Dieter was in my class at school.
Okay.
And I liked him. I mean, I thought he was the nicest guy. He never was crazy over me as far as boy and girl, but he was a good guy. And he got killed that first year after we were graduated.
And probably in Europe somewhere.
Yes. I think his mother went over there once to the cemetery where he's buried.
Was it any kind of any other kind of hardships, like there was rationing of some kind?
My sister and I didn't get along real good, at least about, it was my fault, but both of us, I think. And they rationed shoes, and she was kind of a shoe nut. And she had to have so many shoes, and bought new ones all the time, whether she needed them or not. And so I didn't use all mine. I didn't have the money for one thing, but she wanted some of my ones, and I wouldn't give them to her. I was mean.
Was there anything else important that was rationed at that time that you couldn't
Sugar,
get?
flour, soap, a box of soap, dish soap and laundry soap. It was all rationed. What else? I can't think right now, but there was a lot of stuff.
And
I've seen 2 places where I went to do other things. I've seen stuff stored in attics and upstairs. I'm not going to tell you the name, but it was surprising. Mom and I went up to a neighbor's that was moving, and she had a soap to last her 25 years.
Okay, now you lived in the house, in the brick house, anytime when you were an adult. This brick house?
I was 19 when I got married, and I went been there part of the time up until then.
Okay.
I roomed in town for part of the year after I graduated and did the housework and stuff. I worked at the Oriental Show for about 6 months.
Shinzu Oki's.
Yeah, and I remember the day of Pearl Harbor,
Why do you remember that? How do you remember that?
Well, because Everybody remembers that, but
Did you hear it on the radio or the newspaper?
probably. But I felt so sorry for, do you know Stanley Mullendar?
Yes.
His mother worked there, and he was in the National Guard. And she came to work the next day and didn't know anything about the war. And it closed about a week later, after war was started, it closed. Then I went to the Bluebell, and it says you're not working after you get married. And so I worked at Bluebell about 2 or 3 months.
So you were not supposed to work when you were married, right?
Yeah, I didn't until he lost his job when the twins were in the 2nd grade.
Okay. Women that were married, why couldn't they work at Bluebell?
They couldn't. I mean, it wasn't on a farm, especially. Women, they needed a home really for one thing.
Okay.
And a lot of them didn't drive. My mother never drove.
Okay, but there was no particular. Bluebell didn't have any kind of law about that.
Oh no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
My sister worked there, and she ended up in the office, which was nice for her.
Yeah.
But you worked for, I don't know how long they gave you to make out, but you remember that? You had to make out before you, and I just made out when I quit.
What do you mean make?
You had to make so many pairs of whatever you was doing or so on.
Okay.
And then, you was set for,
Would you get paid by the hour or by?
Oh yeah, it was an hour, I think. It changed when you got good.
Oh.
They put you on the hardest job first, and if you couldn't do that, they put you on an easier one or a different one.
Well, like what was a harder job?
I sewed the inseam,
Okay. Well,
and
did you sew it with a machine?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And that cross where there's 2 of them, she's done that.
Okay.
Then they're done that.
Was it any time too hot to work or anything like that, or?
No, I was mostly in the wintertime when I worked there, and I got a room in town. It was at Jane Scott's. You probably don't know who she was,
No.
but she kept girls or anybody for board, And of course, my folks knew who she was and everything. And I suppose we called her, but anyway, her rooms were all full. So she had this great big room upstairs that she slept in one end of it. She put me into that room, and that's where I spent those. I worked nights.
Well, like what hours at night?
Maybe 3:30 to 11:30, something like that.
Okay.
And I'd walk home, freezing weather, ankle socks on, bare legs, and all.
Would you usually work 8 hours about?
I think so. I think we worked 8 hours.
And about how much an hour? Do you remember how much?
No, not really.
Are you talking about like $1 an hour maybe, or?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
That's what my husband worked for $1 a day when we first got married.
Okay. What did he do for $1 a day?
A farm.
Okay. Helping on the farm. Now, were there? So there were a lot of people worked at Bluebell back then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about that $1 a day though, it's surprising what you could buy with it.
Okay. Like what could you buy for $1 back then?
We came home with big sacks of groceries for $2 or $3.
Oh. Oh, okay.
There's just a different world.
Okay. And but did you take your lunch at Bluebell and?
Yeah, we had a break and we took
Okay.
something. I think they had a lunchroom, but it didn't run at night. I think they had one.
During the day, yeah.
I don't never been in it or anything, but I think.
And they went out of business years ago, didn't they?
Yeah.
About how long ago was that?
I don't know.
And-
But they called me several times and one later. Well, Doc Holycross was in that. I don't know what. Maybe he worked summers or something. And he called me to come back to work. But that time I had kids.
Okay, so I noticed that you have made some really beautiful quilts here in your home. How did that get started?
Mom, when I was growing up, everybody made a lot of comforters and things.
Okay,
That's
you made
really-
your own blankets and.
You made a lot of, and you kind of, almost everybody.
Okay,
And that's where you started, and then I didn't really make a good quilt until my kids were pretty much grown up back in the 70s.
okay. What did you do with that quilt?
It's in there under my bed and it's beautiful. It's a bridal wreath, and I quilted it by hand.
Okay, and you're still doing these things?
Yeah, well, I don't quilt anymore.
Oh, okay,
And I haven't even sewn for a month or more. I just
Okay.
couldn't do it. I was under the weather. I gave me the wrong
Okay.
medicine. It could be getting older that's doing it. The
so,
doctor's fault.
so you've been really, you have more plants in the front of your house and in the back of it there than any house around here. Why?
I owned a greenhouse, we did, at one time,
You owned a greenhouse,
out on 14.
okay?
And before that, I worked for Frank's Greenhouse for, I don't know, I was gonna say 5 years, maybe.
And did you make a lot of money at the greenhouse?
No. First year, I didn't make anything. We was only in business 3 years. And
Okay.
first year, I didn't make anything. And the second year, I started making a little money. But Ed didn't like it. In the spring, he was still working. And in the spring, he'd have to help me a lot. And he just said it was too much. It was probably too much for me, but I wouldn't admit it. And we did real well for a while, but it just wasn't. It would have been a nice place to retire to if he liked that kind of stuff, but he didn't care that much for it.
Okay, so you moved to town after.
We moved to, where did we go to first? Loon Lake.
Okay, okay. How was Loon Lake at that time? Was it a lot of houses then too?
They built a few cents, but they were pretty much,
Okay.
we had a trailer, but it was trailer that had been used as a house and was set on the ground and had additions on it and everything. And where it was, they said had been lake bottom at one time.
Because they drained the lake down.
They did some, and
The lake was a lot bigger.
I wish I could find the paper, but I don't know the date to look for. There was some dinosaur, prehistoric animals found back in there.
Okay.
And I think maybe Joe Orcutt was on it.
Now, you had some relatives that lived up at.
And you did too.
Yes.
Silas Goodrich?
And
No, that was Silas. He
And-
lived in that hotel, he had a hotel.
he ran a hotel there
Yeah.
at Loon Lake.
Yeah, and the people lived in that house when I was there. They had torn off some of it. And
What?
they had a store building down by the lake.
A store.
Yeah, it was
By
a
the lake.
grocery, but it was going,
Okay.
it wasn't working when we got there. I mean,
Okay.
I remember when I was a kid, that, we
Okay.
once in a while stop at Loon Lake and get bread or something. There used to be all these little groceries around all over the country, like
Okay.
Lorraine, and down the other corner, and the next corner had, Helen Kaiser run the one up there by,
Okay. So you mentioned Lorraine. Where's Lorraine? It wasn't very far from where you lived, was it?
it was a mile or more.
Okay, on the same Lincoln Old 30
Yeah,
Lincoln Highway.
And I've got a picture. Arnold Briggs borrowed it one time, particularly. He used to use old pictures and show them, and stuff. And he got the pictures of Lorraine because I've got the blacksmith shop, and I've got where they had a store on each side of the street. And
They don't have any of that now, do they?
no, but I remember that where the hotel was, they had a dance hall, and we used to go away on Sundays and didn't come home till late. Can't hurt anything now, mister. He tears them out sometimes. They cut one off, they cut a new plant, and I don't know how they done it. I mean, it's just like they did it on purpose.
Now Lorraine, that was kind of a crossroads there.
Yeah.
Two roads crossed, and you say they had what did they have then?
Dance hall.
Dance hall. That was before you were around, right? That
Well,
was
I
early?
can remember when they had it. We used to, I started telling,
Oh, okay.
when we went home on Sunday, we would stop and watch them.
And they were dancing, just
You could
local
watch-
people were dancing?
All kinds of people, and
Yeah.
you could watch through the windows.
Okay,
And,
and they had kind of an orchestra, or?
I don't remember what kind of music they used,
Okay,
but do you remember Media Horde? Is that
no,
it? How about Pat Martin?
no,
Okay. Well, anyhow, Meat Horde was great big,
okay.
and Pat was almost a dwarf. And they used to dance together. That was, it was more fun to watch them.
Okay. Did they have a store there at Lorraine?
Oh yeah, they had the store on the opposite side of the street
Okay.
from where the dance hall
And
was.
I'm sure, the family went there to Lorraine.
Oh, yeah.
And was there a sawmill there one time or something?
That was before mine,
That was before.
yeah.
So they had a store and a place to dance? Did they have a restaurant or anything?
No, I don't think they had a, I
Okay.
never heard of any restaurant.
So now there's just
nothing,
several
houses.
several houses there, but it's still on the map.
Yeah, well, that's all
Okay.
right. But we used to walk after the cows. Dad's land run way up,
Towards Lorraine?
yeah. He bought 20 acres in there that belonged to Kaiser's
Okay.
in front of that other house, and he cleared off part of it. Now it's all grown up to brush and stuff.
Okay. So, life was pretty good back then.
Yeah, 1929, that was a depression. I started school that year. I didn't know there was a depression,
Oh. Did you see any signs of?
Well,
Property?
some people lost their property and things like that. But your kid, you got something to eat, and
You had
Place-
all your food on the farm there. So your family was probably not affected as much as maybe some people that.
well, I find out things later sometimes. It was affected more than I knew
Oh,
because, my dad bought that place where we lived from your granddad.
yes.
And the papers weren't final till after them years was so bad. So if it'd been somebody else, he might have had to move, I don't know.
Oh, okay,
Because a lot of them did.
okay. Did you ever see any people that maybe didn't have enough to eat?
Oh yeah, I remember little kids trade things at school one time,
Yeah.
sometimes, and I traded a nice apple for a pretty marble because this little kid was hungry, I thought he was.
Oh,
Even I was about in second grade or something. And then when I was in the fourth grade maybe, Frances Bennett, she was married to Doc Holercross at one time, and she died young. But anyway, she was going to have a exchange. You always had exchange between your students at school.
yeah.
And Mom didn't think they should because nobody had any money.
Uh-huh.
And I told her that, I told the teacher that, and the teacher got mad.
Oh,
And she sat down, she wrote a note and put it in my pocket. Later in the day, she come back and asked for it back,
okay.
But you would get things, well, that's the way with it. You ever remember fish pond at cakewalks?
Yeah,
Well, sometimes you got real junky stuff. That's all you got.
okay.
And it was that way at
Cheap
Christmas.
stuff. Okay.
Maybe you wouldn't, maybe it'd be some used toy that didn't amount to much. But if you got a teacher's name, or they got your name, you got something real nice. I figured that out.
Well, did they, at Christmas time, did the kids sing some Christmas songs and things like that?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
We had it was play. I don't know how long it was, but it was a big deal for the whole school.
Oh,
When I was in the first grade, I guess, the first time. But anyhow, Edith Oatslegger was a mother.
that's a relative of yours?
Yes.
Okay,
And they had, and she had home as the kids, and they had shelves on the back of the stage. A lot of kids stacked up sleeping on those shelves supposedly. But anyhow, I think it must have been the day before Christmas or the day before Christmas. School was supposed to be out for Christmas, something like that. We had a real bad storm, and they couldn't have their play. And so they had it the next year.
okay.
And I was in one when I was like the 5th or 6th grade. ordinarily, sometimes you try out, and I never did very well. But I don't know why. They wanted me to be Mary, and I had to lay up on the stage and act like I was asleep, you know, when the angel came and stuff. And oh, I got kidded so much about that, you know. I was rattly, talking like I am now or worse. And they said, you know, Betty never can keep quiet that long. And anyway, I was Mary. And that was the first time and the last time I ever played a part.
Did you raise your kids much different than how you were raised?
Some, you know, we went barefooted all the time in the summer. In fact, I don't think we had enough shoes to wear shoes in the summer. You know, you a lot of times just got a new pair when about time school started, and that was it. One time my dad took me to town, and he had so much money, I don't remember how much it was, I could either have a poor grade of shoes and boots, or I could have a good shoe. Now how does a kid make that kind of a choice? You don't know how much it's going to snow this winter, maybe it won't at all. I think I took the good shoes, but I don't know for sure, but I remember him doing that. And we lived on our clothing and what food we bought. A lot of it was from the eggs from the chickens. I mean, Dad paid the taxes and that stuff, but Mom had to take the chicken money for her.
So she was in charge of the chickens.
Oh yeah.
And sold the eggs and made some money doing that.
Yeah.
Who would she sell the eggs? How would she sell the eggs?
They came through with a truck.
Oh, okay.
There was always something. But that house out there, you know, there was a stairway just east of the kitchen that went up to a little loft-type room, and there were bins in there for grain. And they would take grain to town to get it ground and bring the chicken feed back and dump it in those bins, and Mom had to go up the stairs to get it for the chickens. Now, you figure that one out, why that was that way. It was built that way. I mean, the house was built with that.
Well, can you think of anything else you'd like to add to all this?
I could think of a lot of things, but I wouldn't know where to start. I thought of something when we were talking about the bread. We'd run out of bread, or maybe Mom didn't make it at that time, and we'd go down to Scott's and get bread. And I can't remember even who did it, but it was probably me. Carried a loaf of bread under your arm, and then it leaked out behind.
And what?
Leaked out behind, you know.
It dropped out, some of the...
Yeah, bread fell out.
Oh, okay.
It was like 10 cents a loaf. That's what amazes me. I got some lists from some old books, the prices back then. I paid 13 something, I think, for my wedding dress.
$13 for you, and was it a white dress?
No, it didn't everybody wear white, and didn't everybody have a big wedding like they do now. I got married following the church service.
What church was this?
Troy Presbyterian.
Okay.
It was the people from the church service was still there. I got, you know, and
Okay.
I invited a few of my friends, and that's where I got married.
Okay. And what year was that, may I ask?
1942.
1942.
I got married I graduated in 41, got married in 42, had a baby in 43, and it goes on like that.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your stories with us, Betty.
Thank you for doing it.
Okay.
I wrote stuff for the kids, but you can't put it all in.
Well, you had a lot of good things there.